Welcome to TheGigRig HQ. I'm here with Jake and Joe. You might know these guys. Anyone that's contacted technical support or had board builds done or anything like that will have talked to these two fine young gentlemen. So what we're doing today, Jake and Joe playing a band, or playing two bands, both the same bands but different.
Yeah, both the same but different.
They've got an original band called Ears Avow, and they've got a function band that is called
Rogues.
And we're going to go through their rigs. They do some really interesting stuff, some really wonderful hybrid of digital and analog and all that stuff. So yeah, we're going to have a look at their rigs and see if we can ask some pertinent questions and yeah, see how you do the thing that you do.
Yeah.
Great. Great.
Bass player.
So this is Joe. Joe plays the bass, and Joe does some really full-on stuff between the Atom and the Zoya, amongst other things. What we're going to try and do, we're going to put details in the description. So Joe's going to write it out, the instructions of what he's actually done. So take us through some of your core tones.
Okay, so one of the things I love about the Atom is the switching possibilities. So I rely a lot on the Zoya because it does everything I could possibly imagine. It's just everything. So if I just quickly run through my signal chain so we know where everything's going from my bass into the patch bay, from the patch bay into tuner aux, I've got a Y cable with the drop. So
the patch cable's going to the input, and then you're going the tuner aux
out of a Y cable into the drop. So that if I need to transpose at any point, I've got a drop to do that. So if I play, I can turn the drop on, and it drops it down.
It's just like the ultimate capo. You never,
So
lose an E.
If I'm playing a 4-string, then it means that I can play tunes that are down as a low B or whatever.
Got it. Okay.
Without needing to bring a 5-string with me.
Okay.
So that's one of the more utilitarian things I do.
Yep.
And then I'm running into the right side of the Zoya. So in this patch, I've got a parallel compression setup.
So when you say you're running to the right side of the Zoya, it's a stereo. There's two different signal chains in the Zoya.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I run the Zoya at the start and at the end of my signal chain.
Oh, cool.
So that I can use the Zoya for more utilitarian stuff at the start, and then for more modulation, ambient weirdness at the end.
Okay.
With the tensor running into it. We'll get into that in a second.
Okay.
And then I'm running into a meat box, which is my octave down. Then I'm running into the Super Ego and the bit commander, which I kind of see as more of my synth pedals.
Okay.
This is just one of my favourite sounds, even though it's completely bizarre.
Okay.
And the reasons on my board is there isn't another pedal I've found that does that sound.
Sure.
Of like slow polyphonic glissando.
Okay.
Which is just wild. And then I've got my B7K, which is like always on. That's kind of my core tone.
Right.
Play that constantly because I find that it's really responsive to how I play, and it just sounds correct.
Who makes that?
That's a Dark Glass. This is a V1 back from about 1 million years ago.
Nice.
And then I've got the Subspace, which is awesome levels of gross in the best kind of way.
Okay.
And then I go tensor into Zoya, and that's the end of my signal chain. So in this particular patch, I'm just running into the front of the Zoya, and then into the right side of the Zoya, and I've got a compressor running first.
Right.
But then what I've done is I've taken the input from the Atom and run it into a high-pass filter.
Okay.
And then I use that to go into the side chain of the compressor so that it only compresses the mid-range and the high frequency of what I'm playing, not the low notes.
And that's all the bottom three. Okay.
So if I just play a second, here's it without it. Here's it with it. Which adds some weight and some clarity and just gives it some oomph, as it were. And then after that compressor, I've got a little tone circuit, so just a simple bass, mid and treble that I can then manipulate my signal before it hits any gain staging.
Okay.
I found that has a drastic effect on a gain stage, as you all know.
Okay.
But the beauty of this is then I'm running into the other side of the Zoya at the end of the signal chain.
Right.
So all of these pedals are kind of almost in an effects loop.
Of the Zoya. Okay.
So then I can run a chorus. So this expression pedal is plugged into the Atom.
Yep.
So it's turning expression pedal signals into MIDI.
Yep.
I'm using that to add delay lines that act as choruses. So if I come forward a little bit, I've got one delay line comes in. It's quite subtle, like really kind of a really subtle chorus that you probably wouldn't even necessarily hear. It just kind of adds some body. I can add another delay line.
So you're indicating here how many delay lines you've added.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's getting more. Yeah. Okay.
And then 3.
Wow.
And then 4.
Wow.
And
Are they in parallel on that?
Yeah, that's all in
That's
parallel.
so cool. That's so cool.
But then what I've also done, just because a lot of what I do as a bass player revolves around gain staging, filters and chorus. That's like a lot of what bass tends to be.
Right.
You're not really doing so much with delay and reverb because I'm a bass instrument and it just ends up getting really muddy if I use loads of kind of ambient effects. So the way I'm using this now is what I can do is using the expression pedal I can set if I want any chorus or loads of chorus.
Right.
And then I can push this button here and that will then change this expression pedal to now control a low pass filter.
That rattling is the walls.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's the job.
That's great.
And then I can do that with a high pass filter so I can go the other way. Up to nothing.
That's amazing.
And then what I decided I'd do is kind of like the MS-20, very famous synth.
Right.
I'm running the low pass filter into the high pass filter, and they're now running in opposite directions.
Okay.
So that when I play,
That's great.
so then you get these really interesting like cancellations between the filters.
Right.
And all that's doing is all that's run by this being turned into MIDI essentially.
Okay.
Just gives me so much creativity, and then things get a little bit wild. So basically, what I'm doing is I'm taking the signal from the right side of the Zoya,
Yep.
and then using that to generate a volume envelope to decide whether this records or plays.
So the envelope signal from the Zoya is actually creating a MIDI message, and that's going into the tensor. Okay. All right.
So-
okay. Right. Okay.
Because that's just really fun.
Yeah, sure. So that's amazing. I mean, what the Zoya can do is incredible. I've not heard it used on bass before. That's awesome. I want to hear a couple of other core tones that you use.
Yeah, so one of the main things that is just amazing about the Atom is the ability to put pedals in parallel.
Right.
So the cool thing about this setup here is I've got this kind of core sound with some chorus and some other wild stuff that I want to do,
Yep.
volumes and stuff. The thing that's cool about it is now I can take that sound and I can put it in parallel with my meat box.
Oh, nice.
So I can go, at the moment we've got, let's just take that back to this, that kind of sound, and
Yep.
I can add chorus if I want to.
Yep.
And then what I can do is go to here, and now
Wow.
So then I can apply.
So what's that?
So what that is the core sound we've already sort of played with.
Yep.
With the B7K in one signal chain.
Yep.
And then I'm splitting the signal before loop 1. I'm sending it just to the subsynth,
Yep.
the meat box. Blend that in, sum that back together after loop 6.
Right.
And then send it out to the bass amp.
So you've got the Zoya and the B7K on one side,
Yep.
the meat box on the other, and they're summed back together at the end. That's fantastic.
So then I can create like interesting sounds, let's say, from the bass side, but still have the weight of the subsynth.
Got it.
I've got, so this setup here is, so this is B7K
Yep.
on one side, on its own.
So this is on one side. Yep.
And then I'm running the Zoya, the Bit Commander and Ego,
Yep.
and the subspace, into the tensor.
Okay.
So that's all. That's again, it's like a parallel signal chain.
Yep.
But what it means in this setting is I can play normally, and then I can, with this low pass filter, add in another signal chain. Or what I can do is I can run that just in without this parallel signal chain. So if I run it here,
Oh wow.
and the cool thing about that is I've got this filter. This filter is controlled in a bunch of different ways. So I've got it there controlled via an expression pedal, again through the Atom to do that.
Yep.
I can go across one, and now this is envelope controlled. Right?
Okay, very good.
So then what I can do is, if I use the Super Ego, I can generate this sort of big glissando sound,
Okay.
and then control when you hear it by my playing.
Okay.
So if I just... So I've got that sound there, right? So now, regardless of what I play, it's just the Super Ego.
It's just triggering the Super Ego.
So the Super Ego's got a drone,
Yeah.
and then it's being opened by my playing, which is before the Super Ego.
Okay.
So then what I can do is I can, so I've got this big A,
Yep.
I can then hit this.
So that's amazing.
And that's all just this routing idea. And then the other thing I can do, if I want it to just be like this slow, so I love like big cinematic, like synth suites and stuff. So again, I can go to this next setting and I can do the same thing. I can just hit a big A. And now what I can do is trigger the envelope with this.
Okay. Wow.
And I've not changed anything, like I've not had to tweak anything.
Sure.
This is just how it's sort of set up. So this led me on to another thought, right? Of that's a really cool sound, but what happens if I treated it as though I had two miniature Zoyas in parallel to each other?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I came up with the setting. So what I've got here is I've got two signal chains.
Yep.
I'm going meat box into meat box into subspace.
Yep.
And then I've got my Super Ego and Bit Commander on the other. So if I just turn that on a sec.
Oh.
The reason why this is really cool is, so then I've got this on one side.
What's this?
Sorry, the Zoya, the right hand side of the Zoya
Yep.
in parallel at the end.
Yep.
And then I've got the left-hand side of the Zoya also in parallel at the end.
Okay.
So now these are controlling 2 signal chains.
Wow.
So I can blend between the meat box going into the subspace and the bit commander in parallel. So then what I'm doing is I've set the expression pedal on here with both expression pedal MIDI outputs.
Okay.
One going from 0 to 127 and one going from 127 to 0. So that then I can do it in opposite orders. And the cool thing that I really like about this kind of idea is you get really interesting like phase relationships between the 2 filters moving.
Sure. That's awesome.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
We can push it further.
Okay.
So again, I've got this. I can do it with high pass filters as well. So that's worth showing.
Wow.
So you get almost like
A format. Yeah.
Or I can do one and the other. So I can do low pass and high pass. Getting back on track, the main thing about the Atom, which has just changed everything for my playing and pedals in general, is the ability to put things in serial or in parallel.
Right.
Because as a bass player, that's just completely invaluable because oftentimes you're running a distortion pedal and it cuts all the bottom end out.
Right.
But you like the sound of the mid-range,
Sure.
but the bottom falls out. And as you know, if the bass doesn't have any bottom,
Then there's no bottom in the bass.
I might as well go home. Like I'm done, right?
Yeah.
So for me, one of the coolest things is that, say for example, the B7K and the subspace, I can run them together. So
In series.
Which is in here. Which is cool.
That's like that. Yeah, it's big messy noise, but that's cool. Yep.
You get the.
So you split the signal path. You're going one side to one pedal, one side to the other. Then you're joining back up straight. Yeah, that's great. That's really cool.
That just opens up so many possibilities as a bass player.
Yeah.
Because you can just get really creative with signal chains, and you don't have to worry about always maintaining the low end with your pedals. Because you have the option to either have a dry signal chain by not putting any pedals in that loop, or you can add pedals in that loop. And that's completely game changing from a bass player perspective.
Awesome. Oh, well done, mate. That's brilliant. All right, Jake.
This is my things.
This is your thing.
So, the cool thing, the way I use G3 between the two bands is...
I'm casually leaning on a Kemper.
Oh, look at that.
You like this?
Marriage made in heaven, right?
So-
this is Dan's, he brought it with it.
So, well, I want to talk to you about this because you use your G3 in combination with a Kemper. Now, this is a powered Kemper.
Yeah.
So this is connected directly to a speaker cab.
Yeah, this is just a standard 212 with V30s in it, Zilla 212.
Okay, and then you also send a DI from this to the front of house, is that right?
Yeah.
Is it stereo?
No, it's mono.
Just a mono signal.
This is
okay,
mono.
all right, so, and then this is on stage in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is doing what?
So, with the most crazy MIDI stuff that I'm doing with the function band is, so I've got, if I click this, so I've got Rogue's Bank 1,
Right.
which I've basically got all different features on the Kemper controlled via MIDI PC and MIDI CC.
Right.
So, for instance, so B, C here, if I hit this turns on slot B here, which is a modulation, which gives me this trem. If I hit C, I think it's like an octave thing.
Okay.
So that all that's doing, as far as the G3 is concerned, is sending a CC message to tell the Kemper to turn that on.
Okay. Okay.
I've also got PC messages that take it from a clean to a mid gain to a dirty gain.
Okay.
So I'm doing all that via PC.
Right.
But as well as that, so I have these, spoiler alert, they're my delay sounds. So if I turn that on. But then using tap tempo CC, I can tap that.
Okay.
So I
That's
can
nice.
control.
Yeah.
I basically look at the Kemper like my amp plus a timeline and a Mobius, all that stuff that's sort of set and forget.
Okay.
Just
As
all
part
programs
of-
saved.
As part of presets, but then you've got access to the other information. That's presets via MIDI.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And
okay.
then, you know, for like my volume pedal, for instance, if I take that down, you'll see on the Kemper, it's gone to a tuner because I've now muted the Kemper as well.
Okay.
So it's running as a volume pedal, but then via MIDI expression, it's telling the Kemper to go down.
Oh, I
make
see.
sense?
Yeah. Okay.
And I was doing that with a wah as well, but I've actually now got a mini wah because I like just putting my foot on the wah and kick it in at all points.
Sure.
Opposed to hitting a foot switch and moving my foot over. So that's what I'm doing with the cover band, and that's just sort of recalling different things all over the shop because you know you're playing like 30 odd songs a night. So if you to have a bank per song, you'd be scrolling the whole time.
Right.
But then with All Ears, the original band, if I
All Ears Avow.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So I have everything sort of set and forget. So this is a song called Love, this is my dirty sound. And then I can go along and it's my verse sound, my spoopy sound.
And so that modulation's all done in here?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
But then up here, I've got some flash stomps and some other stuff that I can chuck in on top. So these two, the arrow down, the arrow up. I'm using the Enzo here
Right.
with the sequencer to give me like a momentary whammy thing. So I'll show you.
Hang on. So how? What we'll do as well? We're going to put some notes in the description,
Yeah.
right? But how have you done that?
So I have a sequencer. So when I'm hitting this,
Yes.
it's a sequencer doing one shot, which
The
means
sequencer in G3.
yes.
Okay.
And it's going from start to finish. It's not looping round.
That's a one-shot sequencer.
Yeah. And it's basically going,
Okay, and that's,
go here, go here, go here.
which is sending out the CC message with the pitch of that.
You've got it.
Got
And then,
it. That's fantastic.
Isn't that wicked?
That's really great.
so there's this band called And So I Watch You From Afar.
Right.
They're like a,
Bit stalkery.
yeah, it's my band about you. They're like, they're like a really riffy band. They're instrumentalists, and the dude had two of the old Boss super shifters, the PS5s,
Yeah.
and he had one for down and one for up, and he would like end riffs and use them for that. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I had a PS5 on my board for ages, but when we were playing around with the sequencer stuff, I was like, hang on, I could do that all from the faceplate of G3.
Right.
Because
great.
I haven't got much going on really, but the MIDI control allows me to do all manner of crazy stuff.
Okay.
Because again, a lot of it is just doing crazy control stuff with the Kemper.
Right.
Because, you know, in my bandmate, she produces our band, and we use the Kemper on the record, so we can have the exact effects we're using
On each song.
Exactly. What else have I got going on? So I've got your Tensor that I stole off you, and I've been asking to steal it for forever. But I have that up here. But what I have down here is a flash stomp, effectively pretending to be this hold switch here.
Right.
So off my unit, I can go.
That's very cool.
Right, so what I'm doing there is where we've added that MIDI CC on the off press.
Yeah.
I'm using a flash stomp, so I hold it down.
That
and
sends
it's
one message.
Exactly, and I let go, and then it's sending me off, so the Tensor effectively thinks
you're
I'm
sending
pressing
it on, off for the
Yeah,
hold
you've got
on.
it.
Oh, mate,
You've got
that's
it.
very clever.
So everything's in here, because I have massive feet, so the idea
Right.
of this tiny board just wouldn't work. I would be turning all manner of stuff on.
Sure.
And then I've also got the Dark Worlds.
That's
Doing like
a great reverb.
Oh man, it's so cool, and I love like the whole the black side of it, the whole droney, holdy thing. So like if you hit this, it says freeze. But what I like about doing that is I can leave that droning and then tune or whatever. So between songs, you know, we can end a song and I can be like.
Nice. Very good.
Because it's one of those things at a live show, the second there's silence, it feels like that whole energy drops.
Yeah.
So it's just keeping that going, really.
So I notice you've got a tumnus and a fuzz.
Yeah.
So you're using those in conjunction with the gain and the Kemper.
Yeah.
Is that right? So
Yeah.
you're not all the distortion. It isn't just Kemper. You're actually using normal overdrive pedals into the Kemper.
Yeah, you've got it.
Right.
So the tumnus in particular is super handy with like the function band stuff.
Right.
For just doing that popping out the mix thing.
Okay.
If I'm playing like a more leady line on a clean sound and it needs to, so I've got it on just a sticky stomp now on every bank, so I can just kick it on over it.
So no matter what bank you're on, that's always going to
You
be
do it
ready
on the
to
fly.
go.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Just gives it a little bit more
Yeah.
to jump out the mix. And then the fuzz war. So you might have noticed down here I've got labelled NS2 twice as well, right?
Okay.
So I actually have a Boss NS2 hidden under my board. That I have the. You've got to get on as many as possible.
You do.
I think Joe and I would get fired from our bands if we got even bigger boards. So we stick with a Pedal Train Junior. That's fine.
That's the goal is then see what you can get on. I was stunned by what Joe could get on his board.
Oh man, it blows my mind. And he also knows no bounds. So he'll come in here with like a pedal on a pedal, and I'm like, dude. Yeah. So I have an NS2 hidden underneath.
Yeah.
And I have on this side, I have the input and the send, and then I have the return and the output, so I can gate whatever I want in the middle.
Oh, okay.
I have the NS2 to sit around the fuzz war here.
Right.
And then I also have the Enzo in parallel.
Oh, cool.
Doing like an octave thing.
Right.
To give me like a crazy guitar synth thing.
Can we just hear? Can you pull?
Give you exactly what
I just want to hear what the Kemper's. Okay.
And then,
So the Kemper's still heavy.
Yeah.
And then the fuzz walls on top of that.
but then I have the NS2 to tidy up because we are like the genre we say our band sits in is sort of like alt rock to pop rock. So, and a lot of those synthy sounds are massive and quite, if you think of like gross moog sound, but they're really tightly gated.
Right.
Whereas, you know, trying to emulate that with a pedal board and trying to keep it tight and sit within my window.
Sure.
The NS2 has been, you know, super helpful for that. I don't have it on all the time. I literally have it to control stuff.
Right.
Like most of my normal presets doesn't involve the NS2 because I'm not afraid of a bit of feedback. I like getting a bit of a squeal from the amp and that feedback from it. And that's another thing with the Kemper and the powered Kemper. You know, we line out to front of house through those for consistency.
Sure.
Because it stops at 57, you know, moving slightly off the cone or whatever. But we still have cabs on stage, for
So you can
physical feedback and for going up to your amp and getting a bit of source, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thanks,
very,
man.
very cool. I like it. Sounds great.
Thank you, dude.
Well done. So there you go. I've wanted to do this for a while because I've thought that what these guys, the sounds they're getting out of their rigs and the way they'd integrate it with that digital technology was really interesting. And yeah, just wanted you to see what they were doing. So thanks for doing that. If you have any questions, most of the questions that you have will be in the description below, the details of how the guys are doing what they do. But any other questions, email in and either Jake or Joe will get back to you. So yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day. See you soon. Bye.